That's the crowd at Eden Park at its latest big event. And no, it's not a rugby or a cricket match. It is Luke Combs.
It's one of my favourite songs of all time.
Performing the first of 12 concerts at the stadium this year. Who would have thought this old swamp that was drained for the first rugby game in 1914 would host the world's top entertainers? But there's more to come, much more. In just a few weeks, Eden Park could be named the new Auckland main stadium. Even the Prime Minister is talking it up as an economic saviour.
Kiwis spend thousands flying across the Tasman to see massive concerts, go out to bars and restaurants and boost the Australian economy. When back home, Eden Park sits empty because of council event rules. Now, in fairness, the council has actually increased the limit, but I think they should seriously consider abolishing it. We need larger ports, we need more concerts, we need more jobs, we need more investment, we need more exports and talent.
I'm Sharon Brett-Kelly, and today on The Detail, the future of Eden Park. Entertainment mecca with a retractable roof and stands, a hotel and high-rise student flats, plus how it wooed the neighbours to support big changes.
This is our turf shed.
Oh!
So it's our ideas factory. Was the man cave, but that wasn't politically correct.
Nick Sautner, CEO since 2016, is showing me his favourite place at Eden Park. It's a small room with a big TV, a dartboard, bottles of fizzy drinks and empty pizza boxes from the latest ideas meeting, a big whiteboard with past and future fixtures marked on it, and signed sports jerseys everywhere. Photos of the 1981 anti-apartheid protests hang next to a signed Ed Sheeran poster.
So there's signatures. Jacinda Ardern and Christopher Luxon and Billy Joel.
Okay, this is a concrete pillar.
Yes.
With all sorts of famous names on it.
Yeah. So the Dark Destroyer off the Chase and Sean Johnson, Desley Simpson and Simon Bridges and David Seymour. And
you could sell that for millions of dollars
Benny,
one day.
Yeah.
Let's do a shoey. What's that?
I'd suggest that may have arisen out of the weekend. Correct. That was Luke Combs and the All Blacks on stage.
Saturday night, where he fills his cowboy boot with beer and drinks it out of that and then throws it into the crowd and they have some memorabilia.
From the turf shed to the main field, or the fortress, where the ground is being ripped up post Luke Combs' concert. There's so much going on at this venue, they're talking about making it the star of a behind-the-scenes TV show.
Yeah, so we've got the Blues versus the Chiefs on the 15th of February. So we'll do approximately 1,500 square metres of turf replacement ahead of that fixture.
That's just something that you have to do each time?
Correct, after each concert. So we're continuing to reduce that level of and requirement through modifications to our operations. And obviously that makes us more cost effective for promoters.
Right.
We'll walk back through the tunnel and you can see the artwork I was referring to.
Yeah. The tunnel takes us past a series of murals, like a wall of fame that represents the new era of Eden Park. So what are we looking at here?
This is Matt Griffin's first installation. So this is Travis Scott. And when Travis Scott posted on his Instagram, there was 14 million views in the first half an hour.
Amazing. On a serviette. Thank you. We're sitting down now in the plush new bar that's called the Black Door.
When I took the opportunity as CEO, the first 100 days we focused on rewriting our strategic plan. Our vision is clear, to be the national stadium. Our mission is to be multi-purpose. Our strategic priorities, there are 9, and our game plan is focused on values and behaviours, the first one being customer service. And we're relentless in our approach to ensuring that we follow our game plan through our strategic priorities.
When you came here, things weren't so great, were they? And then I think maybe 1 or 2 years later, the state of the finances at Eden Park were really laid bare.
The clock is ticking to solve Eden Park's financial woes. The Auckland Council recently commissioned a report on the Trust's ability to pay back its loan obligations. The report paints a bleak picture for the stadium's future, estimating a potential deficit of almost $80 million over the next decade.
Eden Park is not a council facility. We don't own it. Ratepayers don't want council to dole out millions and millions of ratepayer dollars to solve a problem which won't actually solve the underlying problem, which is about the viability of Eden Park.
There's a couple of, I suppose, issues that needs to be addressed. 70% of today's revenue wasn't part of our business model 5 years ago. We've completely transformed the business. We've increased our utilisation, we sweat the asset, and a number of activities are both commercial but also community focused. That being said, we looked at channels like naming rights. I've been responsible for 2 naming rights deals done in Australia, but we wanted to keep the Eden Park brand. It is a globally recognised brand. So we aligned with global leaders like Samsung, Kia and Qatar Airways, but also then local providers to provide us with the financial foundations to then build what we wanted to achieve. Part of that was around our consenting, and then part of it was around our community, 2 key pillars within our strategic plan. But like any business, if you don't evolve, you'd be extinct. And we see we've got competition on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday by whether it be a shopping centre or online, from a streaming service through to people looking at new sports. So we needed to evolve, and that's seen things like glamping, rooftop tours and golf being played at a stadium. We lead the world in that space.
But what was it like in your first few years here as CEO when the state of things, millions of dollars in the red, you had to get bailout loans from the council, the government?
So I just need to clarify that. So for the Rugby World Cup in 2011, central government committed $190 million for the redevelopment. Auckland Council committed $50 million, but when it came to pay, they backed out. And so Eden Park then ended up with a $50 million debt. And that's a debt that we still have. We pay interest on that debt, and we've never missed a payment, even throughout COVID. In terms of stadiums globally, most of them receive seed funding from councils or central government. The improvements that we've implemented at Eden Park over the last 5 years for the 3 Women's World Cups have been funded by our activities, but then also from some small grants from central government for things like the LED lighting. Auckland Council has, on one occasion, provided us with $9.8 million over 3 years, and that saw some asset management and asset replacement done. To put it in a context, there are tens of millions being invested in Mount Smart and North Harbour Stadium over the last 10 years.
Which are council-owned?
They are council-owned, but we could give the context of the Hauraki Golf. Hauraki Golf isn't owned by the council, but they invested significantly in the Sale GP on the weekend. Eden Park is a charitable trust. We pay full rates to the council. What we do need is an understanding from whether it be ratepayers or central government and taxpayers to understand that Eden Park provides significant economic benefit to the local community and also the country, and it is an asset that we should celebrate from New Zealand Inc.
But was it clear to you when you came here that something had to happen, more needed to be done? You've come from Australia where the commercialisation of these stadiums is way ahead of what's going on here. You must have come here and thought, God, I don't know, it's a bit hokey, isn't it? And more, potential, huge amounts of potential.
I think that was my thought. It was there was a large wall that now has an AA insurance sign. I remember talking to the then CEO and said, why isn't there branding on that wall? And I think the response at the time was either we didn't have the resources or it's never been considered. And so I saw it as a huge opportunity. We had static signage at the venue and we introduced LED signage that increased our yield by tenfold. If you look at our strategic priorities, the number one was around our consenting framework. I couldn't understand a country that prides itself on being the first for women to get the vote, then didn't offer the same rights to musicians as sports people. Why could musicians not perform in our national stadium on the biggest stage in the country, yet sports people could? So we went about saying things have got to change. And so first we had to convince the community. We worked with the community around a program called the Hood, the Neighbourhood Supporters Club. And there are things that we weren't doing well, so we said we'll change those. But as a compromise was to say we need additional flexibility. And the flexibility included concerts. We invested significantly, several $1 million to obtain our consent for concerts, and in recent times a further $500,000 to get the further 6 concerts. Now, I look at it and say we're talking up to 12 nights a year. The impost on the residential area versus the financial benefits to the country, the escapism, the hospitality businesses, etc. I live near the beach. Every time it's sunny, people park out the front of my house and go to the beach. We don't restrict people going to the beach on a number of occasions a year because of the impost to the residents that live near the water. So in this instance, we needed to provide a level of comfort, within our game plan, and now we have 97% support from the community.
I want to talk to you about that because for years and years and years, there was a very strong, very outspoken neighbourhood group which was really against pretty much any kind of extra events here, nighttime events, all of that kind of thing.
Firstly, there's never been concerts at Eden Park. It's not a permitted activity. It is a sports venue, and over the years the residents have accepted new things around the sports. The red line has always been drawn at concerts.
The board responsible for overhauling Auckland's Eden Park in time for the 2011 Rugby World Cup is moving to quell neighbours' concerns about changes to the enlarged stadium's design.
The Neighbours Association says since it withdrew an appeal with the Environment Court, there have been many redesigns that could have a significant impact.
And I'm waiting for reports to come back from the police and security and the park and 1 or 2 local residents, and I'm getting a lot of emails, as to how well we manage the liquor licensing ban. It is reasonable for the neighbours to suggest that we manage it as well as we possibly can to give the neighbours a reasonable go.
How did you do it, really? Because that group has been very powerful. How did you go about kind of getting the neighbourhood on side?
When I came to Eden Park, I was amazed there was no real engagement other than the newsletter. And so the Hood, our neighbourhood supporters club.
Did you set that up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Was around engaging, talking about traffic management summits or providing free tickets.
So how did you even set that up? Did you deliver pamphlets to every household? How did you get people to come along?
So part of it was we had a database of people in the surrounds, but it was around public meetings, providing my phone number. I got a call at 12:15 in the morning, one of the days prior to Luke Combs, from a resident who had a question for me. I answered my phone, and I often say my phone's on 24/7 because running a stadium is like running a small city. You've got security issues through to cyber security. You've got power versus water. You've got people, you've got public transport, but you've also got stakeholders like our community and local schools. So the Hood was our neighbourhood supporters club. Unashamedly, the logo states it is our supporters club. And then initiatives like the Fortress, our playground, it's a two-way street. We provide facilities, but in return we expect our neighbours to support us when we want to increase our activities.
But at the same time, you've got this very strong existing group that's been around for decades that was really opposed to any extra activity. So was it a case of this group, wearing itself out? Or was it just that there were new people in the neighbourhood? How did that happen?
I think there was always a neighbours association and a residents association. The neighbours association were the detractors, and the residents association were willing to take any members as long as they had a view that their views would be considered, and then ultimately the consensus of that group would then be put forward as the recommendation.
And 2 Eden Park resident groups are at odds over whether the Auckland venue should get more concerts.
One says it would love to see more and at least one Taylor Swift concert here, while the other group fears what could happen if Eden Park hosts more big events.
I went and I met with some of the Neighbours Association individuals. And
the detractors.
So we took on these issues in a public forum. We took them on through engagement and consultation. And what we found is that a lot of those groups, although they said that they represented the community, that was probably the views maybe 20 or 30 years ago. There's technological developments we've done, there's engagement through initiatives, there's implementation of resources and assets for the community. We're very proud of our refugee garden and our community composting that happens in the area. Those initiatives, again, they're not revenue generating for the park. We do e-waste collections. So we provide facilities that a lot of other communities don't have access to.
Someone I've spoken to about this calls it a masterclass in community PR, what you've achieved.
It was something that we did by working with both sides. What we found, we had extremists at both ends. So you've got people saying we want 360 concerts a year, and we've got people who want no concerts. We actually said, well, what is realistic for Auckland and New Zealand? We've got a role to play not only for Auckland Inc., but for New Zealand Inc. Without the community support, we couldn't be that key pillar in economic growth or tourism and marketing for New Zealand.
So what if you had enough people who went to the council, made submissions and said, no, we don't want this in our neighbourhood, they could still stop the
further
concerts?
changes.
Further changes.
Yeah, and it's quite financially, it's significant to us, but also it's the time that it takes. So, as an example, we don't still have permission to play concerts on a Sunday night. Yet, during the concert consent hearing, Pearl Jam played at Mount Smart on a Sunday night. And so as much as I'd like to think I have the ability to influence artists or promoters, when they're coming to New Zealand, if they want to play on a Sunday night, as much as I'd like to say, sorry, it's either we are or we're not coming in many instances.
The other big thing that's before the council now is the decision on the stadium for Auckland, isn't it? And it's, in a strange way, the council's kind of whittled it down to two.
Still on the table is the Te Toangaroa precinct in Key Park near Spark Arena and Britomart. It would include hotels, shops, commercial spaces and a new 55,000-seat stadium and is backed by New Zealand Rugby. The other option is a revamped Eden Park with new and upgraded stands and a retractable roof.
So just a couple of points to note, noting that process is still in hand and we have agreed with council not to make any public comments. But what I would say is that there is only one option for New Zealand and that is Eden Park. We've got probably close to $1 billion head start with the investment that has already been made at the venue. We've got 125 years of history and tradition. We've got a $6 billion investment from government on CRL with a 7 to 9 minute trip to the CBD opening next year. We have also the flexibility to do a staged approach to the delivery of Eden Park 2.1. 60% less carbon emissions to a new build, but also we're not looking at building above train lines or on reclaimed land, leasehold facilities, etc. So we're not against a downtown stadium. What we have said is that we want there to be an equitable assessment against any other facility, and we know with a facility like Eden Park, there's approximately a $68 million asset management plan over a 10-year period. That will be significantly higher for a venue in the vicinity of $3.5 to $5 billion.
Are you saying that if Eden Park is selected by Auckland Council as the stadium, there won't be any public money required?
Historically, major upgrades to any infrastructure in the country has required investment from government. We haven't gone down that path to date around what the investment might look like, but we do know that we provide significant economic benefit for the city, and we know the other assets in Auckland or other event owners get significant seed funding from council. So at the right time, there'll be conversations with both central government and council around the future event calendar. That may include Commonwealth Games and what role that Eden Park could play.
If Eden Park is successful, what will we see? What will be different here?
Well, the priority for us is around the Cricket World Cup in 2028 and having the North Stand upgrades to increase the boundary to enable us to secure, ideally, a quarter-final and semi-final. That then enables a longer boundary for short form and long form cricket, but then also retractable stands to bring you 14 metres closer for rugby, and provides a whole range of new modes for rugby for smaller crowds to enable closures of areas or indeed intimate modes for the venue. So the first stage is a focus on the North Stand redevelopment and what that does in terms of the event calendar for New Zealand. Then also we're looking at things like connectivity into the Kingsland Railway Station, a redevelopment out on the Outer Oval, and obviously we've talked about the 2.1 end vision is to have a retractable roof on the number one.
What if it doesn't go through? What if Eden Park isn't selected?
We've started and we know that there won't be a new stadium in Auckland for at least 10 years. And so the stadium will be required for Aucklanders to be able to have major events.
So you'll keep putting on events?
The intent is to continue to operate. I'm confident we'll be here for another 100 years.
Why was Eden Park on the list of fast track projects at the end of last year?
So Eden Park 2.1 was put through as part of, so I appeared at the Select Committee and talked about the importance of fast track. We've invested over $3 million through resource consent processes over the last 3 years. And I think it was clear that the process with fast track was to demonstrate that we need New Zealand to be able to compete with the rest of the world. And unfortunately, there's been occasions, particularly with Eden Park, whereby projects have been stifled due to the process. And what we would like to see, if we could secure the funding, whether it be through private funding or indeed a combination of public and private partnership, we're not in a position where it takes us 10 years to get approval through a consenting process. So as someone who is proud to be a Kiwi now and a family, I want major infrastructure projects to be delivered in New Zealand in a timely and financially viable fashion.
Just confirm with me, you want to build a hotel and some other kind of, student accommodation
So
there?
there's a variety of options available under 2.1. What we've proposed is to say we need flexibility to operate the venue, but also to introduce new revenues. And that might be with new activities like Park and Ride on the Outer Oval, should cricket relocate to Colin Maiden Park, looking at residential tower for university accommodation. There's examples globally.
So the hotel and student accommodation is part of...
It could be part of a staged vision, but the emphasis for us around our submission to council is around ensuring that we can maximise our event content over the next 10 years, noting there won't be a new stadium in Auckland for at least another 10 years.
I see what you mean. You've achieved a heck of a lot in the time that you've been here. As you say, Eden Park has global recognition. You get special treatment when you say that you're the CEO. What's next for you?
There's still work to be done at Eden Park, but I do think that there is huge opportunity to expand the activities further. I'm very pleased and happy living here. I've got 3 young children, all under 6. It is a beautiful country and a great city, but we do need to see change because it's the same issue globally. There's a lot of dark days. Even at the stadium I ran in Melbourne, even with 95 event days a year, the number one revenue was car parking.
So how many event days will you have here this year?
Approximately 35.
But
gosh,
you've got a long way to go.
Yeah, that's right. And of those 35, there's probably only 10 that will be sold out. So in terms of how do you utilise the asset differently when you know even with all opportunities of consenting, I still think a calendar of 45 event days is probably going to be the maximum at Eden Park.
Is that right?
I don't think there's the demand or the population that could sustain much more. Even at 24 premium events, that's 2 a month to either attend or conduct hospitality. Most businesses in New Zealand wouldn't want too many more than that.
That's it for today. The Detail is a newsroom production supported by RNZ and New Zealand On Air. Thank you to Nick Sautner. This episode was produced by Davina Zimmer and Gwen McClure and engineered by William Saunders. I'm Sharon Brett Kelly. Ka kite.